Welcome back to True Crime with Jackson, where we peel back the layers of the darkest minds in history. Today, we're venturing into one of the most chilling true crime stories ever documented. A tale both horrifying and bewildering. This is the story of Albert Fish, a name whispered with unease even among seasoned investigators. Let's rewind the clock to the late 1800s. Hamilton Howard Fish was born in 1870 in Washington, D.C., to a broken and already troubled family. His father, nearly 75 at Albert's birth, died when Albert was just 5. His mother, unable to care for him, placed him in an orphanage. It was there that Albert claims the seeds of his darkness were first sown. The stories he later told of the abuse inside that orphanage, both suffered and witnessed, are difficult even to recount. Now, while many face adversity young, few take the turns that Fish did. By his 20s, Fish was drifting, painting houses, moving from city to city, sustaining only shallow connections. But behind this mundane facade was an appetite for the grotesque. Fish became deeply obsessed with sadomasochism, pain, and self-harm. But his story would spiral even darker. For decades, Albert Fish managed to elude authorities, leading a double life. He moved to New York City in the early 20th century, living in poverty but hiding psychological horrors few could imagine. He'd answer classified ads placed by families seeking work for their children or looking for boarders. Sometimes he'd approach the homes of struggling people, posing as Frank Howard, a charming and helpful farmer looking for hired hands. But it was in May of 1928 that Fish's sinister compulsions reached their apex. That month, he visited the Budd family, feigning interest in employing their son Edward. But it wasn't Edward he wanted. Fish's true fixation was the Budds' younger sister, 10-year-old Grace. When Fish asked the Budds' parents if he could take Grace along with him to his niece's birthday party, they agreed, never suspecting they'd never see her alive again. Fish led her away from her home, and Grace Budd vanished. For years, there was nothing but silence. No leads, no arrests, just one heartbroken family and a city haunted by whispers. The police interviewed hundreds, advertised rewards, but Fish simply disappeared, one more face lost in the teeming masses of New York. But Albert Fish was not done. In 1934, 6 years after Grace's disappearance, the Budd family received an anonymous letter. It was a grotesque confession, detailing with chilling clarity what had become of their daughter. The letter's words are among the most notorious in criminal history, sparing no horrifying detail, delivered in a careful, composed hand. If you're wondering how any killer could be so bold, so remorseless, so eager to revisit their own crimes, you're wondering the same as investigators did. The letter, by some miracle, led detectives back to Fish, a small, hunched old man with the demeanor of a Sunday school teacher. He was arrested at his derelict Manhattan boarding house, his gentle appearance hiding his unspeakable crimes. It was only after his arrest that the full staggering breadth of Fish's depravity was revealed. He confessed, sometimes with pride, to the murder and cannibalism of Grace Budd. And while Grace was the only victim for whom the evidence was definitive, Fish claimed, sometimes credibly, sometimes fantastically, to a string of other child victims. He was suspected in multiple disappearances and assaults throughout New York and beyond. Some called him the Gray Man, others the Brooklyn Vampire. To the press, he became simply the Boogeyman. In court, the details were so ghastly that seasoned jurors wept. Fish insisted he was receiving commands from God, that voices directed his every depraved act. His body was a map of suffering. He had inserted dozens of needles into his own pelvis, visible on X-ray. He self-flagellated. He ate raw meat. To this day, debate rages over whether Fish was legally insane or simply evil beyond redemption. Ultimately, the jury found him guilty, but sane. On January 16, 1936, Albert Fish was executed in the electric chair at Sing Sing. His last words remain unknown. He asked his attorney to hand over his final statement, A document so disturbing, his lawyer reportedly refused to share it. Even now, almost a century later, Albert Fish remains one of the most baffling and horrifying serial killers in American history. His case forces us to confront the limits of our understanding of evil and madness. It reminds us that the darkest monsters often wear the most unassuming faces. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the chilling legacy of Albert Fish. If you want more stories from the grim corners of history, subscribe to True Crime with Jackson. Until next time, stay safe and never stop asking questions.